Welcome back to the Line Table. I'm Gene Grant. We're loosely calling this segment State of the State Leftovers. There were so many things from the governor's speech this week, we can't get to all of them here, but there were some interesting tidbits we thought that likely flew under the radar. Let's talk what was missing from the speech. And Laura, there was nothing about legalizing. Tom had mentioned medical marijuana in the last segment, but legalizing recreational marijuana. I was a little surprised by that. That didn't come up. Were you surprised by that at all?
No, not really.
No, she's been cautious about this. Right. You know what I mean? Is she just following a pattern? She wants to be cautious, or?
Well, I mean, I think that if you look at where she was as a member of Congress compared to where some of the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party in Congress, I think you see some differences there.
Gotcha.
And I think this may be one of those issues where there's a little bit of a difference. And I think I think she's taking a cautious approach on it because it is very controversial, but there's obviously some benefits. I think there's some arguments on both sides, and we've seen some big financial benefits from the states that have legalized it recreationally.
Right.
So there's obviously going to be bills out there, and I expect that her people will be on top of that and that her position will develop, but I'm not entirely surprised that it wasn't specifically addressed.
Interesting, Zach. I thought there was an opportunity there with recreational marijuana to talk about funding schools, that tie it to something that a need, not just yeehaw, there's legal weed and we'll all have a party. Sure. But make it about something.
And some folks have said that before in Colorado and other funding mechanisms, Washington State and stuff. But I think the governor is being thoughtful more than being cautious. I don't think she's afraid to take on this issue. I think she's willing to see what the legislature is going to bring that meets a responsible implementation plan with respects to making sure minors can't get a hold of recreational marijuana very easily, that we're covering DWI, that we're covering public safety. If those boxes are checked, I think she's going to be very reciprocal to ideas coming from the Senate or the House. So it's going to be a matter of what the plan's going to be coming straight from the people that just got elected.
Right.
I think.
Tom, we joked a little bit in the last segment about the Ethics Commission and unfunded mandates, but we did, again, what's this going to cost? It's an interesting thing, but then tied to that too, I didn't hear much about tax reform. Were you surprised by that?
Wow. Yeah. I was, but I wasn't. Tax reform is one of those things in that public setting is not really going to wow people over.
That's a good point.
You talk about tax reform, everybody has a different view of tax reform. Are IRBs impacted? What about personal income tax levels? What about the bonding levels? For the universities and community colleges rather. Right. But on the legalization of marijuana, what I thought was interesting was that to Laura's point, she knows, probably because she has a good staff around her, that the whole topic of marijuana has not fared well in the Senate. We joked last year that in previous years they had maybe one vote. Last year they had 2 votes for, and so it's going to be a very challenging topic to get that through.
Right, interesting point there. Kathy, she did mention redoing and bringing back up to speed our behavioral health system.
Right.
But we didn't talk about it, and we didn't talk about a number. She didn't talk about a number. That is going to cost. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement on that we're going to have to write a check to get that back up to speed. But we're talking about priorities, aren't we, at this point?
Yeah, we are talking about priorities, and she knows that the system has been gutted and that we do need to bring it back up, and that there's a lot that needs to happen. You know, in CYFD, she did talk about, hiring more agents so that, we can cover those unfilled positions and ramp up that particular agency. But in the area of behavioral health, I think everyone understands that there is going to be a significant cost, but I hope that like Zach is saying, that in a responsible framework, that they're understanding that we need to take a really hard look at where are the priorities, where do we need to start, because it's not going to go from 0 to 60.
That's
so
right.
we have to start somewhere. Where is that going to be? And then we'll find out in these next 60 days where that happens.
That's right. Laura, is there an opportunity to do behavioral health better with this situation? We have a clean slate, unfortunately, almost. Is this a chance for her to really put her mark on this? This is part of her background as a previous cabinet.
It is, and I think she has some very close relationships with some key people in the legislature on this issue, and not just behavioral health, but health in general.
Right.
And so I think that there's definitely an opportunity to use some of that experience and relationships. I think she's appointed good people to head up those agencies where she, behavioral health, unfortunately, we hit rock bottom in the last administration on some of that, and it was terrible what happened. We really saw a huge void where other companies from out of state came in, and even that turned into a nightmare as well. So hopefully there's an opportunity to build the system back up and address some serious problems we have.
Right. I have to ask you a question. What is what is that term? Pocket, rocket, pocket? What was she?
Rocket docket.
Rocket docket.
Yeah.
I'm teasing, of course. Explain to the folks what that is and what entails there. What is that all about?
I think it's just, it was just her shorthand way. I mean, anybody who knows Michelle she's very funny. She's a very funny
she is.
person. And she has a very good command of, terms of art, and she just likes to add sort of humor to things. And I think she said in her speech, too, that, we're going to be here for a long time. We might as well have some fun while we're here. And that's definitely very Michelle.
That's right.
But the idea with the rocket docket, I think it really comes from sort of the legal space where there's, a docket is basically a proceeding. When you have a rocket docket, it's sort of, it's fast tracked. And I don't know that there's necessarily a specific way of doing that, but certainly if you can come to an agreement in the legislature and have both houses and leadership sort of agree to something, you can fast track stuff. I mean, I think of, if I had to give an example, the nurse compact from last year. I mean, that was like done.
Wasn't it, though? That's
First
right.
couple days of the legislative session. That would be a rocket docket, right?
Gotcha.
Where you're sort of fast tracking something because it's a priority and there's really not an option to not do something. It's really about the details. Let's just get on board with it and it can move forward. And there's a lot of things that I think with the right leadership, you can make something like that happen.
Good point there. Criminal justice reform.
Yes.
Interesting to hear some of this. Community policing efforts, raises for public safety officers, long overdue.
I think marijuana fits in there as well.
That's
actually.
right. That's right. Focus on repeat and violent offenders as opposed to, I think she put it as kids who found themselves in a jam.
Right.
Was the term. Your sense of that? That's been long overdue in some circles.
It's been long overdue, and the last governor just had a complete, focused area of just being tough on crime all the time, in the sense of saying, like, the appearance of being tough on crime, as to the practicality of what the success is going to be and how we police our communities. And it seems this governor is going to go from the ground up. She's going to start with working with Mayor Keller, Mayor Miyagishima, Mayor Weber, and being able to say, what does your existing community policing look like right now? How can the state support you? And where can we find the inequity balance that we need to make happen? So.
Interesting point there. Tom, another one that was on the list that was interesting to me was climate change plans. Signing that executive order. Yeah,
I was going to bring
There you
thinking
go.
the same thing here.
I love it. I'll come back to you, Zach, on that one too. Please, if you would.
Yeah, well, first off, my firm does a lot of work in the renewable industry. Just as disclosure, my thoughts are my own.
Please.
I thought that her following through on a campaign promise
Right.
with respect to the 2015 Paris Climate Accord was huge, because as a part of that, it increases New Mexico's renewable portfolio to 50% by 2030.
Right.
She also, in that same context, was talking about methane gas emissions, which have been really prominent in the Four Corners area. So, I think that, one, she's following through on a promise, but two, she's single-handedly helped to revive an industry that has been here for a while and has been trying to make very positive impacts in New Mexico. So I think it's a huge move, huge move.
Pick up on that if you would.
Yeah, very excited about this,
Yeah.
because the governor is not only committing to something that I feel will be inherited by future generations, but current generations. But the fact that we have the amount of wells and activity that we have in the state of New Mexico, with the available amount of employees and personnel to actually inspect these wells, is beneath the federal limit. We have to be able to control the amount of methane emissions we have, and it sounds like the governor is going to make this a priority. So I couldn't be happier to see something like this.
All these things are about leadership, aren't there?
Right.
Just putting it out there, an expectation. Here's where we can go if we get together and figure this out. So we'll see what happens. That's all the time we have on the State of the State. But if you missed the speech or any part of our reaction to the speech immediately afterwards, it was a great discussion when I sat down with former lawmakers. Head to our website at newmexicoinfocus.org. Now, while you're there, you can also find out what other stories our line panelists were following this week in a special web extra.